Good morning, everyone. This is my mountain life, and we're here in front of the toka that I originally started filming a couple films ago. And this is probably my oldest tree in my orchard, and one of the tallest. My cats have come out to join me, Stolter and Scamper. That's Stolter, and that's Scamper. And they catch voles and mice sometimes. Today is March 23rd, and I know my last video I actually marked it March 24th. I'll change that if I can figure out how to do it. This is actually not that last video wasn't a future video. It was actually like March 10th or 13th or something, so I was off. I don't know what I was thinking. Anyway, today is a cold day. It's expected to be like 15 degrees on Monday, I think, and this is a Saturday, so it's supposed to get colder, and we're supposed to have snow, although we didn't have snow yesterday. So this is kind of what I have to deal with here. Is March, you would think would be a kind of a spring month, but it isn't for us. March is March is still a winter month for the most part here. It has some fake head fakes where it tries to tell you that it's going to be spring, and then it gets really cold again. So that's just how it is. And April is almost like that too. So all these trees are waiting for the nights to be about 40 degrees. Once the nights are about 40 degrees fairly consistently, the trees, I think, figure out that, okay, it's not going to get below freezing, we're not going to have a frost, we can go ahead and put our blooms out. And so they hold on to their buds, and then they're just waiting. At least that's my impression of what I've observed. So I wanted to kind of talk about the kind of trees I have today. So it might be a little more interesting of a video. And I'm going to go and look at all the buds on the trees. That's one thing I like to do, to kind of figure out, I don't know why, but I kind of try to figure out if I think the tree is going to survive or has survived the winter. Some of them are fairly easy to tell, and some of them are not. One of the things I look for are the colorations in the tips. So like you can see here on this here, there's like a kind of a orangish look to the tip of the branch. And it's brown down here, so it's not black or anything. And then of course you look at the buds and you can see, I don't know if I can get close enough, if it'll zoom in or not, but anyway, the buds kind of have this, like, you can tell that there's like a leaf ready to pop out on that. So this is this tree's been in here a long time, and then this is also a very hardy tree. It's one of the reasons why a lot of people, when they go to the nurseries locally, they'll find tokas pretty readily, because the toka is like a zone 3 tree. So it should survive probably any kind of winter that we would get in this valley. It is a North American and Japanese variety. So it was bred, I think a guy out of South Dakota actually came up with the variety. It's very widely used, and the reason that it's very widely used is because it blooms profusely, and it can pollinate about any of the Asian plums that you have, I believe. And so it's really well known for being a good pollinator of other Asian plum trees. Now the plums themselves are extremely good, very good plums. My tree isn't that productive, or at least this one hasn't been, but the plums that it did put out, oh my gosh, they tasted just like candy. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, this is nature creating something that I thought needed to be, done in a factory. So I guess it's nature's factory. Now I have some different varieties of Asian plums. So, and people call them Asian or they call them Japanese. There's no, like, I've heard people use both terms. I refer to them as Asian plums, but you know, I've heard people say they're Japanese. But this is a Toka. This one over here is an alderman. It hasn't produced any plums yet. We're hoping this year it will. And it's been a pretty vigorous grower, this particular tree. And again, it has the kind of orangish look to the branch, which is healthy. And I can see that it has the little buds are starting to really get ready to pop out. So I know that tree survived the winter. The other one I have is this one over here. This one, I'm not sure what the variety is because I planted it a long time ago and I wasn't paying attention or really caring too much. I just planted trees kind of in my garden area, and then I started paying attention later on, and then I kind of lost track in my head of what variety it is. It's either one of three varieties. It's either a superior, which I kind of think it's not, or a Juanita, or an Underwood. I'm not sure. It's one of those three. And this one looks good as well. It looks like it's going to put out quite a few buds here once the warmer weather hits. This one, you can see how it's grown. It's kind of grown to the, I guess, to the south, pretty much. I mean, you can see that. Well, the reason is this big, huge pear tree that I have here. This pear tree was here before I bought the house. That pear tree used to be more vigorous, and the branches used to be out more, and it used to shade this tree a lot more. And so this tree grew like to the south to try to get to sunlight as much as it could. There's not much more I can say about this tree. I got some plums off of it last year, and they were pretty good plums, I guess. I'm not a big plum connoisseur, but I have my wife try them out, and she liked them. She thought they were good. I don't think it's a superior plum. And then this tree right here is my black ice. Now, if anybody asks me, like, I don't know, if they had a backyard and they could plant two trees, what would they plant? And they were going to plant Asian plums. I would say plant the black ice, for sure. And you probably want to plant the Toka with it for pollination, because this one requires a pollinator. Almost all of them do. I've read and heard that the Toka Asian plum doesn't, but I've read also that it does. I don't know what to think of. I get different comments, and I'm not saying they're 50-50. Most people think it's that the Toka over there is a self-pollinator. But there are a few people that say it's not, so I don't know. Anyway, this is an incredible tree, the black ice. It's a smaller tree. I think naturally it won't grow as tall as the Toka, so it's a shorter tree. And this one, this particular variety, I've had the best luck with. It produces kind of, well, obviously you can tell by the name of it, black ice. It produces really dark purple to black plums. And I've had people tell me, oh, those are really nice dark purple plums. And then other people say, well, those are black plums. They're probably closer to black, but you can see a little purplish tinge sometimes to them. But the tree produces plums pretty good. And then the other thing I'll say about it is the tree is pest free for the most part. I haven't had any problems with my black ice tree as far as pests go. And it's just like I plant and I forget. I just plant, I come out and I harvest. I haven't had to deal with hardly anything on this tree. So it's a great tree to have. Black ice is the name of it. And the plums taste what you'd expect. That's the one thing I'll say is, if you're trying to surprise somebody, you're not going to really surprise them with a black ice plum tree. They're going to probably taste the black ice and go, oh, that's a plum. Like, they recognize it, they expect it, that's what it is. The Toka, on the other hand, if you get some plums off the Toka and you give them to people, they're going to be kind of shocked when they eat into the Toka. They're going to think, oh my gosh, that's a plum? Because it tastes just like I said, candy. Some people say bubblegum. I don't know if I got a bubblegum flavor out of it. I kind of got more of a not bubblegum, but like those little candy hearts that you get at Valentine's Day. I don't know. It kind of, to me, it had more of a taste like that. Maybe you don't like those, but so this is kind of this is really a good tree to have, but it needs a pollinator, so you need another Asian plum. And that's the other thing, is that there are two different categories, major categories of plums. Well, there's three actually. There's European plums, there's Asian plums, and then there are American plums, North American plums. North American plums aren't typically grown or talked about, and you don't really find them in the nurseries. I know that back east they grow wild, and people, I think, talk about them more, but out here you don't hear about them. And they're not quite as palatable. It doesn't seem like people don't like them quite as much, but the Native Americans used to eat, obviously they ate the North American plums. Then you have the Asian plums. The Asian plums are more fresh eating plums. That's what they're known for. You eat them right off the tree. They're really juicy. The plums here that I've tried, and like I said, I'm not a plum connoisseur, but I have tried them. They have a sour skin and then a sweet inside. So it's like sweet and sour. If you don't want the sour, you can just try to take the skin off of them and then just eat the plum themselves. Now, I think the plums, the pit of the plum seems to be clingstone, which means that, as far as I can tell, maybe some varieties don't have that, but that means that you're kind of eating around the pit, and then you kind of throw the pit away, which means it can make it kind of nasty sometimes. I mean, not nasty, it's kind of messy is what I meant to say. So, in my home orchard, I have an alderman, I have a toka, I have a black ice, and I have an unknown, but I believe it's either Underwood or Juanita, maybe Superior. That's what I have here as far as Asian plums go. The only variety that is locally sold, as far as like if you go to the nursery and you're looking around, of the European plums is the Mount Royal. European plums, I think, need a little bit warmer of an environment, and so this is a Mount Royal plum tree right here, but it hasn't produced any plums yet. It's supposed to be self-fertile and a zone 4, which means it should handle most of the winters here, but I haven't really had any experience with it. I'm trying to get into some European plums more, which I'll talk about later on in this video. But for now, let's take a look at it and just see, because that's what I said I was going to do, is take a look and see if these trees were going to bud out. And I like the coloration of the branch. So first of all, the branches here, most of them, some of them don't look good, but most of the branches have that coloration of kind of a reddish tone to them, orangish red, which leads me to believe that they look like they're going to probably bud out. And I think this one's fine. Let's look at the black ice, which is this guy right here. Okay, black ice has all these clusters of leaves ready to go, and there is that different coloration as I was mentioning. There's an old leaf we'll just throw off. So it looks good. Now, the interesting about the black ice also is that the leaf is kind of looks like a paddle. So it's narrow on the beginning and then wider at the end. That's different than the toka, which looks like just a regular leaf. And then here's this unknown variety, and it looks good too. So all of my Asian plums and my Mount Royal should do okay this year. And this is the home orchard. Now let's go and talk about the other trees I have in the home orchard area. I call it the home orchard, but it's more like the home garden. And we'll start in this very back area over here. This is a Stella cherry tree. And You can see it's got leaves ready to pop out on it. This is also a Stella cherry. They have produced cherries in the past. This is a Bing cherry tree, and the soil here is like perfect for this tree. It absolutely loves it. It's done quite well in its growth. This is a Lapin cherry tree. Also, this is what pollinates my Bing. This is actually a self-pollinating variety. When I read online about people with the Lapin, they don't seem to be quite as excited about the fruit of the Lapin. Most people use the Bing to kind of be the gauge of fruit. Like what's the good fruit? Or what's a good cherry? People will say, well, it comes out later than the Bing, or it tastes like this compared to the Bing. So everybody kind of uses the Bing as the measurement tool. This is also a Bing. Now this tree is a standard tree. The other two are either dwarf or semi-dwarf, I can't remember. But this is a standard Bing. Now, people will probably wonder why these aren't pruned, perhaps. And that's because I'm kind of doing more of a wild garden, and I'm not really big on the pruning aspect of things. My neighbor, he prunes every spring and he gets an incredible harvest, better than mine. So there is something to be said for pruning, and I don't like disparage anybody who wants to prune their trees at all. They get better production than I do. But like I said, I want these trees to be fairly tall and provide shade, because I'm not really a big man for the sun. I try to keep out of the sun if I can. But I also want to have the occasional fruit on it. Next, we have another Lapin right here, and it looks good. The leaves are coming out on it. And finally, we have another Bing, and the Bing looks good as well. And then at the very end, or the very beginning, depending what direction you're going, this is a Chinese apricot tree. I have gotten one fruit off of this tree, or actually eaten one fruit off this tree. I think I've had a couple apricots that have fell off, or they got hailed off or something, so I've had one. It was so good. And I'm going to talk about apricots more in detail later on in a different video. My experience has not been good with them as far as production and as far as like the trees surviving, and I've tried different trees. But let's just look and see how this guy is looking. It's hard to tell on the buds. They're all just kind of black, but I do like the coloration of the starts. This reddish color tells me that the tree is doing pretty well. So I'm pretty happy with that. So this is a view from, if you walk out of my house, you can see that I have a grassy area, and then I have trees lining the whole outside, and then I have shrubs intermixed. And so I do have some fruit shrubs, or berry shrubs I should say. So these are currants, and they look good. In fact, they're going to put out leaves right along with the Asian plums. And then I have some raspberries back there, and I have some currants here. I will get more currants. My wife likes them. Most people in the United States are not big currant fans, but my wife enjoys them, so I have 4 currant shrubs, and I will get more. And I have a couple of blueberries that haven't done anything, and the raspberries are kind of spotty. But I have some blackberries that I'm going to put in, and I have some more raspberries. Now I did cover with some wood chips over some of these. You can see they're poking through still. but I was trying to protect them from the snow that we were expecting in the really cold weather. So I'll show you that garden once it comes out. And then I shut my gates. Go, hi kitties! Does you want to walk with me to the north and south orchard? So we'll go there and take a look at those trees. Oh, I forgot to talk about the pears. I just completely forgot. So this is a really old pear tree, and I retired it. I just let it grow up. It was pruned to some extent. I have to keep cutting branches off because they're dying. So it's got what, pear decline or whatever, probably. The pears are really good off of this tree. Incredible. For me anyway, my opinion of pears is I like them crisp like an apple. I actually prefer a pear over an apple if it's crisp, and that's what these are. And they keep for quite a while. What kind of variety is it? I have no idea. But it looks like a Spalding. That's what it looks like. It's definitely not a Bartlett. I know that for sure. Oh, and there's the cats climbing the tree. This is an early gold European pear. And this is one of the varieties that's sold at the local nurseries. It can go up to zone 3, I think. Maybe even colder, but I think zone 3. The pears are supposed to be like a summer pear, but I haven't had any yet. I think this tree produced one pear, but it did bloom quite a bit last year, which I'm happy to say. So I expect some crops off of this. I like the coloration of the tips of these branches. It's telling me it's survived the winter. And if I look at the buds, I can see a little bit of green underneath them, so they're ready to pop. So this one should be okay. And then, in order to make sure that it has a pollinating friend, I got this Ure, U-R-E, all capital letters. And this one also looks good. In fact, I can see one of the buds just like really ready to come out. So I think the Ure will be fine. And if we come around to the back of this, I have, I didn't talk about it, but that's a golden spice pear. That's been my most productive tree, this guy right back here. And one of the first ones I planted. So now, it's a productive tree. It had over 300 pears on it last year. So, but it might be more biennial if you don't thin it. I don't know. We'll find out this year. Now, as far as the pears go, they're a little bit like not marketable. I don't think. It's not like I think I could take a golden spice to the local market and sell it. It might be a cooking pear. I think about out of 100 people, I didn't actually have 100 people try it, but let's say I think I had like, I don't know, 10 people taste it. I probably had 4 people that absolutely did not like it at all. 2 people that said, well, maybe it's okay. If it's the last thing, I might try it. You know, I might eat it, but I wouldn't search it out. And then I had maybe 3 or 4 people actually like it. So, you know, 30 to 40% of the people that tried it said that they would actually, you know, eat them. So that means it's probably not that great of a pear for marketability. It has a lot of grit to it, and one person told me it kind of feels like sandpaper going down my throat. You know, they didn't like that feeling. When they want a pear, they want that slimy, you know, pear that you get out of a can that just kind of just rolls down your throat. That's what they want. I actually read a research paper on pears, and they're supposed to be good for stopping or reducing the chances of esophagus cancer and something to do with your digestion. And the actual grit in the pear, actually, it may not be a bad thing to have once in a while for health reasons, according to the paper anyway, because it might kind of clear out some of those bad cells that are lining the esophagus. I don't know. That's just something that I read. Now here's another Toka Asian plum. It looks really good. It's ready to put out some leaves and blooms. I actually have 5 Toka plums. And the reason I have 5, I had 4, and the reason I had 4 is to pollinate my other Asian plums. So within all my orchards I had 4 of them. The reason I have 5 is because I took some of the plums last year to my work and had people try them, and they were like, oh my gosh, if you're going to plant another plum tree, you need to plant more of these. And so I was like, all right, fine. So I planted 1 more. I'm not sure how many more Tokas I'll plant, if any. I might wait this year to see what kind of production I can get out of the trees. I know that the plums are well liked by the people who tried them. Maybe 90% of the people, like 9 out of 10 of the people who tried it, really liked the plum. So that's a good sign. Now I just need to see if the trees will be productive enough to give me more plums. But this tree looks good. Leaves are coming out. The coloration of the branches is right. So, okay. Now we'll go to the other 2 orchards that are, one's under construction. I actually just bought the materials to finish the orchard up yesterday, and when they arrive, then I'll be working out here, trying to get them done before the trees arrive, because if I don't get them, if I get them before, or if I don't get it done before the trees arrive, then what I'll have to do is I'll have to put the trees in these cages, as you see, because the deer will absolutely eat them otherwise. So this is a south orchard, and to kind of orient you, it's kind of interesting. So this is east, and so when the sun rises in the summer and the spring, the trees back in here really don't get the morning sun. The sun's hitting back, you know, up against these trees back here. And then as the sun comes overhead more, then these trees get the afternoon sun into the evening. And then the sun sets over there, and these trees actually are the last ones, I think, of all the trees in my orchards to get sun. There might be some tips of some trees in the home orchard that get it. So what kind of varieties do I have here right now? Well, I have another black ice. I have 3 of them, 1 in each of the orchards. So here's another black ice. And this black ice is looking good. I have a Toka, so my 3rd Toka that you've seen, and this guy looks really good this year. I don't see the coloration as I was looking for in the branches, but I can see all of the buds ready to pop out. This is an Oblinja, and I bought this from a nursery last year. It was really, the leaves are tiny. It looked like it was barely surviving, and I'm gonna be kind of surprised if this thing buds out this year. This could be a dead tree, but if it's not, great. Now, would I replace it with another Oblinja if it dies? I don't know that I will. I've read a lot about the different trees on some forums that people like, the plums and things like that. And Oblinja is not one that people talk about in high regard. I don't know, so I'd have to think about it. This is a Kohiko. This is another Asian plum variety. It has bronze leaves. It did well last year, and this year it looks to me like it will have leaves popping out. So we look forward to the Kohiko. I think it should be all right. Now the other, this whole section here is saved, and I've got it all marked out and everything with flags for my fence line and for the trees that are going to be put in here. But this whole area back in here will be European plums. I'm going to try them out. Okay, so why would I try them out when it's March 23rd and we're talking about snow potentially coming? Well, so the USDA has my zone as zone 5A. That was in 2012. Now we're considered to be zone 5B according to the USDA. So in theory, I should be able to grow anything that has zone 5, or I should, for the most part. We'll see if that's actually true or not. I kind of doubt this is necessarily zone 5B. I'd still question that. I think we were in 4B prior to 2012, and now we're in 5B. Of course, they're talking about this being climate change, you know, and all of that. But my observations are maybe some areas aren't warming up at the same rate as other areas, so I don't know. So what I have here is I have 2 schoolhouse plums. I bought them from Raintree Nursery. And European plums, because they come out later on, they leaf out and stuff later on. It's hard for me to tell how, you know, good this tree is right now, if it survived the winter. But I like the coloration of the branches, and to me it looks like some of those buds are probably going to be okay. So I would say this schoolhouse, maybe not every branch on this tree, but it should be all right. This is another schoolhouse plum. I got 2 of them, and it looks like the other one. So it's not like the Asian plums where I can see the leaves ready to pop out. It's kind of maybe a week or 2 behind it, and maybe it wants a little bit warmer. Maybe it wants 45 degrees at night before it pops its leaves out. I don't know. But why do I have 2? Because I have 2 and 3 of a lot of other things, but I'm not doing that with European plums. I'm buying kind of a collection of like ones. Maybe I'll get a second one, maybe in the future, but just ones right now. Why do I have 2? Well, it's kind of a personal story. So my sister, she bought one because when we were growing up, we had a yellow plum at our house. We have no idea we had 2 trees actually. We have no idea what variety they were. No idea. They could have been the schoolhouse. It could have been something else. The trees put fruit out every other year, and boy, when they put out fruit, they put a lot out. My parents didn't have to do anything to the trees. It was growing behind another great big tall tree. So it was kind of amazing that it put fruit out even to begin with. But it did, and just great memories. And so my sister planted one, but she lives in the Seattle area, and they had problems with, I think, brown rot or something. Just some problems with, you know, having to protect the fruit from whatever the insects are and stuff, because there's more humid areas have more disease pressure and more pressure with other things. So they said they're taking it out because it's just not worth it for them. And so I said, well, I'll plant it in my orchard. And I got 2 of them because we had 2 when we were growing up. And that's kind of the story behind the schoolhouse plum. It may or may not be the variety we had, but just for memory's sake for my sister and my family, we're just going to pretend like that's the variety for now. And if we find out later that it's not, then maybe we'll try to figure out what variety it was. Maybe I'll even go up to the old house and you know, try to figure out what variety that was. This is a Seneca. I like the coloration of the branches, and it does look like it's going to put out leaves, I'm pretty sure. That might be wishful thinking on my end, but I think that it's going to be fine. Seneca has a has a pretty good reputation from what I read on the forums. Not necessarily with the tree itself being a great producer or, you know, anything like that. In fact, some back east, they're having some problems growing it. Some of the people who grow them as a profession were having difficulty with this variety. But I live in a drier climate, so maybe this tree will be just fine. And then I've got this one here, which is a jam, or a blue jam. Blue jam, and again, this guy looks pretty good, I think, coloration and everything. The blue jam European plum is, I got it because, and this is going to sound crazy, but eating this one fresh probably would have a negative experience for most people. And the reason is it has a high level of astringency to the fruit. Now, what does that exactly mean? It means that when you bite into this plum, the juice in the plum binds with your saliva, giving you the sensation of your mouth drying out. Now, most people would say, why would you buy a plum that gives anybody that sensation? Nobody wants to have their mouth dry out when they're eating something. But you can cook with it, and you can actually reduce the astringency by doing a couple things that I read about anyway. These are from Rain Tree Nursery. If you want to read about it, you can. It's supposed to be a pretty good producing plum, so that's a good thing for it. And again, if you take this plum and it's just part of your plum tasting and your collection, I think it's a good thing to kind of show people what the different sensations or tastes would be like. And that's kind of what I was thinking on this. Now, as I said, this is going to be filled up with a bunch of different varieties in the future. The row that I showed you with the Asian plums, that row is going to continue on with Asian plums, but this whole section kind of in the middle, kind of like almost a rectangular shape, will be filled with European plums of all different kinds of varieties. So they'll be a nice, if I can get them to grow, it'll be nice for people to try out different kinds of plums. Now on the other side here, I have a row of cherry trees. And by the way, this is probably not the best place for cherry trees. But this whole, you can see the flags. That's where the cherry trees are going to go on the right. The flags over here, that's going to be Asian plums down there. And then the middle over here will be European pears, and the middle over there will be European plums. That's the design. This is a gem, a European plum, or pear, pardon me. And it was surprising how well it did last year. It kind of came as a little tiny spindly thing, and I was thinking, this is probably one of my weakest trees. I planted it, and it took off. So I'm really happy with this one. This is from Rain Tree Nursery. It's called the Gem. It's supposed to have some resistances to some diseases. So that's the one thing I haven't really had to worry too much about, are diseases, but you never know when something, I mean, they are known to be in this area or in my state. So this is another early gold. So I have 3 of them. This is the second one, and this is in the South Orchard. And the one thing I'll say about the early gold is it seems to be a pretty good grower. So it grows pretty well. It doesn't have any pest pressure that I know of. And this probably won't produce any blooms this year. If the other one was, the first one I had was any marker, but it should be okay. But as far as how are the pears on it, I have no idea. And I've tried to find something about what other people have said about it, and I haven't heard of anything. Like nobody, I can't really get anybody's opinion. And of course, when you go and you look up at a nursery, they're going to say, "Oh, it's a really good tasting pear," But I want to hear from the connoisseurs, the people who really like pears, and they do like little blurbs on them. And then this is the second year to pollinate that Asian, and just like the first one, it actually looks like it was trying to almost put its leaves out before this cold spell hit. So I think that this year probably will throw pear or leaves out first. Now, I read that the Ur is actually related to the early gold, but they're supposed to be able to pollinate each other. It's like the early gold came from the Ur or something like that. This is a passed away black Tatarian cherry, so it did not. It didn't even put out leaves. And Rain Tree Nursery was nice enough to refund my money. But this is the second one I had. I have 3 of these. I have 2 in this orchard and 1 in another. And it looks good. So it looks like it's going to put some leaves out. This is a standard tree. So it's on standard rootstock. And because the soil under here is heavy clay, I kind of think that I need to look for standard trees going forward. These 2 trees I'm worried about over in this corner here. These are both European pears. I got them from Rain Tree last year. This is a Seckel, and I look at it and I don't see any reason to think that this tree is going to have come back this year. Hopefully I'll be surprised about it. The Seckel pear is supposed to be a really good pear, so it's kind of a shame. And then this is a Harrow Delight, and they both had really small leaves last year. And again, I'm skeptical on this one too. But I've seen pear. I'll have to tell you stories later on. These were I just bought from Costco. This is a Comus pear, and this is a Seckel here. I'm going to go into more detail as to why I got them. But first of all, Costco trees are really inexpensive. They're like 20 bucks right now. But I haven't had the best luck with Costco trees either, so. Now, why do I have this split? I think I talked about it already. I want a road in here and a pathway, so that's why I have a split here, in case you haven't watched the other videos. These are Asian pears. I'm trying them out. 2 things I haven't had good luck with are apricots and Asian pears. And I'm thinking it's too cold for them in this environment. Maybe the soil isn't good because it's heavy clay. Of course, everybody's thinking, why are you planting in heavy clay? You got to do all this stuff to it. Well, I know. So first, this is a Ready Robin Asian pear, and I suspect that this pear is going to be okay this year. Now, one thing about some trees, like apple trees, and I'll show you this, is there's kind of a velvety look on the branches. And if you see that velvety look, it gives me the feeling, because it doesn't happen over the whole tree, it's just the places where they were growing last year. It gives me the impression that that tree might be okay. So we're hoping that the Ready Robin will be all right. That's a Asian. There's actually, if you want to read about it, I think you can find it on Rain Tree Nursery website, because I bought it from them. But it's actually from New Zealand, I believe. And it's a cross between a Chinese pear, which is an Asian pear, and then something else, I believe. This is a Tarawa. Now, again, you got this velvety kind of look on the branch, and then it looks to me like the buds are looking okay. I think that Tarawa is going to leaf out. Now, you may have not heard of Tarawa for Asian pear. It's a zone 4, which means this is probably one of the colder varieties of Asian pears that you can buy. It also says, when you look at the different things, that it might bloom at the same time as the Seckel pear or the Comus or something. There's a couple other varieties. And so you might actually be able to cross-pollinate this with a European pear. I'm not going to hold that as a fact, though. I'm not trying to say that's a fact. That's just what I read. So I found this pear tree at a local nursery last year, and it was Hooper's nursery, I believe, in my local area. And there was one Asian pear growing on it. And my wife said, well, if you're going to get a tree, get this one, because it has one pear and we can try it out. We can eat it if it, see if it comes all the way to the end of the year, and we can eat it whenever it matures. And so that's what I did. And oh my gosh, that pear was so good. Now, of course, it wasn't here that it bloomed and set a crop. It was at a nursery, but it was so good and wonderful. I was so pleased with it. And so I would put it on par with your store-bought Asian pears, or maybe even better. But the thing is that I didn't have another Asian pear to compare it with at the time I was eating it, but I just still thought it was great. So I'm really happy with this tree. So happy that I think that I'll probably get another one this spring. And if this one leaves out, then it will tell me that at least this particular variety probably will be able to survive our colder winters here, or have the better chance for Asian pears. And I'd really like to grow Asian pears, but so far my luck hasn't been that great. But I'm going to get this one, and then I'll talk about a strategy that I'm going to have later on, because there's another pear that I read about from the University of Minnesota that might do well with this one. This is a Kikasui, and sometimes I look at it and I think, no, this thing is not going to come back this year. Other times I look at it and I go, well, it has some signs of life. Maybe it'll be okay. So I'm like 50-50 on that one for coming back. Now, these two cages here, I went to a farmer's market this year, and there were two butternut walnut trees. And this one died, but I actually think that it might have a start coming out of it. And this one did okay last year. They were like 10 bucks a piece, so it was like not a big deal. But I think they're gonna be just fine. So I'm kind of happy with a couple butternut walnut trees. And then this is the North Orchard, as I think if you've watched my previous video. So I'll just open up the lock. My hands are cold. I didn't wear gloves. So let's talk about the varieties of trees in the North Orchard. This orchard is my most developed one. It's got a gate, it's got the fence. So first thing is, there was a red mulberry. It probably didn't make it. This is an Antago. It died, didn't leaf out last year. Rain Tree Nursery refunded my money, which was nice of them. This is a Golden Spice pear. I have 3 of them, 2 of them in this orchard. And it looks like it's going to bloom out or come out with buds just as good. This is an early gold. And again, or no, I'm betting this is a year because of the way this looks. All of my years seem to be ready, or the first ones to pop out leaves for my European pears, which would mean that this would be, in fact, that might be an early gold, a year, and this might be the Golden Spice. That's probably the way it is. And this one looks okay. I think it'll have leaves pop out. This is an Asian pear, probably my first one that I planted. I have no idea what variety. I was ready to take it out last year, and it started popping out leaves near the bottom portion of this tree. So when I get the leaves popping out again, if it does, I'll probably cut it off where above where all this dead is here, and see if I can't get this one to grow. And then this is a golden spice pear, and this tree struggled last year. It looks like it's going to put out leaves, but this tree struggled. The sun comes up, and in the spring or in the summer, those shrubs there have leaves, and so it gets no morning sun. Then these trees shade it, so it doesn't get very much of the morning sun, and it doesn't get any sun until the afternoon when the sun's like over here. And this is probably one of the coldest locations of my orchard, is this location right here. So I would say he'll be delayed coming out. This tree, of course, it looks like it's going to have buds, but you know it's not, because the deer destroyed the trunk of the tree. So I'll cut it off down here and see if I can't get the same variety to come back down below. This is a a summer crisp pear, and it doesn't look great, but it might be just fine. This is a rootstock pear, so it's going to be a surprise whatever comes out of this. The deer got to it. This is a Parker pear, and it's hard to tell. I mean, the coloration of the branches is good, but I can't see any life in the buds yet. And there, see, my cats follow me everywhere I go. Hello, boys. How are you doing? How are you? Oh, here's a good boy. Oh, yes, you are. Yeah, get some mices. And then this is a summer crisp. It looks good. Coloration, the buds. This is another summer crisp. And then we have our cherry trees, my dwarfed cherry trees, my not great growing cherry trees, but they look like they're going to put out leaves. First of all, they're growing in heavy clay. Cherry trees are probably the worst ones to grow in heavy clay. That's a Lambert. This is a Bing. This is a Lambert. And this is a Bing. They won't pollinate each other from what I read, even though the packaging at the time I bought them said they would, but what I've read since then says they won't. This is a Rainier right here, and this is a Rainier down here. I had to cut it down to as low as I could because it had something wrong with it, and I didn't want, if it had a disease in here, for it to spread. This is a silver buffalo berry shrub. It's growing very slowly, but it's native. This is a black Tatarian cherry. So if I want to grow a cherry tree, I think the best chances for a cherry tree to survive in this soil is a standard rooted cherry tree, which I think is Mazard or something. So that's my goal. And this is these are nanny berries. So 2 nanny berries there and there. They're not, they're native to America and they're actually native to my state, but not this region of the state. But they seem to be doing okay. Another silver buffalo berry. And then we get into my last row of Asian plums. This is a pipestone. and probably my weakest of my Asian plums. I think this portion is dead, and I think this portion is doing okay. You can see the different coloration, and then over here it looks like it just looks completely different. And that's because this is alive and this I think died last year, that portion of the tree. This is a lacrescent. I read about the lacrescent and it's a yellow plum, yellow Asian plum, but I don't get, like the reviews I read about, nobody raves about this one. It's just kind of like, you know. So I'm not sure if the tree isn't that productive or what. This is my 4th toka, and tokas always look good. Like I look at it and you can see that all these little leaves, buds are out, all the branches look good. So this is an alderman, my 2nd alderman, and it looks like I'm going to have leaves pop out, but they're always like on these little small spindly branches. This is my last toka, the 5th toka, and again, it looks good. All the branches, coloration, the buds, looks like it's going to be a good tree this year again. The deer popped one of the branches down. And then this is my 3rd black ice. And this tree actually had black ice plums on it last year. So happy with this variety. We'll see how well it performs here. And now we'll talk about the last trees that I have in the orchard. I have 3 rows of apple trees. My mom told me a long time ago, don't plant apple trees, she told me. Apple trees have the most diseases, they have the most problems, the most pests, and I'll talk about that more in detail at a later time. She's not wrong necessarily, at least in my area compared. Now apple trees are pretty easy for me to tell whether they're gonna put leaves out or not, or at least my experience. They get this velvety look on the branches, and then you can see the tips of them look like they're ready to burst. This is a summer red, and I have another summer red right here. So this is a summer red, and it looks like it's ready to push out some leaves too. This is a gala, and it looks okay. A branch that the deer knocked off. This is a dead gala. The deer got to it first. They knocked the white protector I had off of it, and then the voles ate around the very base of the tree. So this tree is gone. So I'll have to replace that in the future. This is a Galveston, and it's always had good leaves, but it really hasn't produced any crops yet. But the thing about this tree is it gets nice morning sun, but it does not get late afternoon sun at all because of this big maple tree next to it. This is a red Duchess, and it looks pretty good. Leaves look good on it. I mean, the branches look good. It looks like it's going to pop out leaves. This is a gooseberry, I think a red variety. This was a frostbite apple tree, but the voles ate the roots. You can't see it because I put the tree up straight, but before it was leaning, like 2 years ago, or I guess last spring, it was leaning. I put it up straight. It tried to come back, but I just don't think it made it. So I think it's dead, and I'll probably have to remove it. This is a Norland apple. They're one of the easiest trees to grow in my area, especially. Oh, my cat found a mouse, I think. This is one of the easiest trees to grow in my region, and the apples are okay. They're smallish. I think you're just jumping around. I don't think you see anything. um,